Hi, Professor Malinsky. This is Rachel Fasaro, and we are going to talk to you today about the book First Break All the Rules. So this textbook talks about, if we go to the first slide, this textbook talks about two main topics within studies. One, what do you have to do to get and acquire top talent, and then what do managers have to do in order to maintain top talent. I think this study is really important and valuable because it shows that before they did the study, they found that less than half, only actually 30% of employees in the U.S. are actually engaged at work. And think about how important that is to a leader to understand and know that their employees may not be engaged in the workplace and how that could impact productivity, performance, profitability, retention. So that's why this is important and relevant. This is the first study of its kind, and it gives voice to over 1 million employees. So if we go to the next slide, this book is a collection of two large studies conducted by Gallup. It has talked to over 1 million employees and managers, and it said essentially that all great managers have one thing in common, and that is first they break all the rules and break the rules of conventional wisdom. And this text helps managers and leaders to capitalize on their own leadership style. It's not going to tell you what to do or how to do it, but it's going to tell you what other great leaders do that you can potentially implement in your own business as a leader. On the next slide, please. So one important topic that this book talked about was people. How talented employees are vital to the organization, and that talented employees require great managers. This is so important. I think that most people in the workplace can see this. I actually read one piece of literature called Hardwiring Excellence that actually agrees with this statement, that people are vital to the organization. They're important to running high profitability, performance, productivity. And the author explained in Hardwiring Excellence that I liked, it said that employees should be credited when success is achieved because they are the ones who are being implemented. I think the author says specifically the implementers should be the ones credited when success is achieved. And I think that's really valuable. That's something I know that I see in my workplace where our leaders are really more, and my classmates will talk about this, leaders are more of a catalyst to help their employees achieve success. But at the end of the day, it's the employees building the product or giving the presentations. So if we want to go to the next slide. So what this study did and what these researchers did was build what they called a measuring stick, and this measuring stick helped identify a strong workplace. And it used these 12 questions, which I won't go through in detail, but I think there's two main call-outs about these questions that I want to discuss. One is that they use a lot of extremes. So you'll see that, do I have a best friend at work, or do I always have this? Do I always have that? And the reason they do that is because it's easy to say that my manager supports me, but does your manager always support you? That's the difference, and that's what shows strong employee opinion in a workplace. Secondly, these questions go in order, and I think that's important to address because if you're a manager and you're asking these questions of your employees and you see that there are some gaps and opportunities, it's important to address these questions in order because they start from kind of the foundation. So number one, for example, do I know what is expected of me at work? If you don't know what's expected of you at work, you could be the most motivated employee or the best leader. You're not going to achieve the most accurate outcomes. So if we want to go to the next slide. So putting the 12 to the test, really the goal of this was to devise a way to measure strong work environments. The reason that this was a unique study is that it was the first of its kind where it addressed these questions over 12 different industries. Any other study like this has only worked within one industry. And it used 4 main business outcomes, which were productivity, profitability, retention, and customer satisfaction. And then finally, go to the next slide, please. So the findings from these studies was that clearly there was a link between business performance and employee opinion. I will say though that there was one article that I found in the Journal of Occupational in the Journal of Occupational and Organizational Management. And essentially this journal stated that although this statement is true, there was a finding that after the first year, the link between business performance and employee opinion diminished a little bit. So I'm going to use this in my workplace as a reminder that motivation, although it's important, it can actually diminish over time. So for example, one of my SMART goals was to clear my inbox every day. It sounds simple, but it can become very tedious, and it can also get out of control if not managed. So I'm going to use this knowledge to help me remind me that motivation can diminish. And in the textbook we talked about positive reinforcement, setting clear expectations when setting goals. So I'm going to use that in my workplace to make sure that I reward myself when I meet my goals. Finally, the findings talked about how managers influence employees' business outcomes greatly. And I think next we'll have Rose talking about the next topics here. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Rose O'Brien. I'm going to be talking today about the second chapter of our book, and it's in relation to the wisdom of great managers. So Gallup did a lot of research. He interviewed thousands of different managers from all different backgrounds and all different industries, and took this research and analyzed it to try to find out what exactly it is that all these great managers have in common. And through all this research, he found that there really isn't much in common. All these managers come from different backgrounds, have different management styles, are from different races and countries, and there really isn't anything that there's one set of characteristics that defines a great manager. But what he did find was that there's actually one shared wisdom between all these managers, and that is that these managers understand that there's actually little remolding that they can do to their employees, meaning employees are who they are. You're not going to be able to change them. And what you have to do, instead of focusing on making them fit your organization, you actually need to build on their strengths. Find out what exactly are their talents and what is the best way that we can utilize their talents. We can't focus on what their weaknesses are. We have to focus on how to make them be the best that they can be. So essentially what these great managers do is they serve a catalyst role. And in this catalyst role, they are able to select the right employee, set the right outcomes for them, motivate their employees, and develop them to have their fullest potential. So Gallup found that that these employees know that people don't, and I found that this quote was really good, people don't change that much. They don't waste time trying to put in what was left out. Rather, they try to draw in what was left in, and that is hard enough. And that is the true challenge for any great manager. So at least at my work, we have a lot of seminars that our company hosts for all different departments. And these seminars allow us to help increase our talents and improve our job skills to be the best that we can be in our positions. And I think that's one really good way to relate to this chapter and how our management cares about us and developing us and finding a way to utilize our talents and help improve and build on that, rather than focus on what our weaknesses are as employees. And that is what makes them great managers. And also in relation to personally, me in the workplace, and the 4 keys that we're going to talk about in our following chapters I was recently given a responsibility at work to handle our child support and garnishment payments. I work in our accounting department. And the reason that my management felt that I was the right fit for this is because I am reliable and I'm able to understand the confidentiality that comes along with handling this type of work. So my management was able to select me and define the outcomes that I had to what I needed to get done. And they were able to focus on my strengths as an employee, that I'm reliable, that there's specific deadlines that need to be met. And I was the right fit for this because I'm able to handle what they were given to me. So in our following chapters, Alex is going to start talking about the 4 keys, which is the focus of this book. Alex is going to begin talking about the talent and the right outcomes, and we'll also conclude talking about the strengths and the right fit.
I'm Alexandra McNutt, and to go end off of where Rose was discussing, I have the first key, which is selecting for talent. Great managers define talent as a recurring thought, a feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied in the workplace. And by using this definition, we can see that talent is not in fact a rarity, it's more of a common place in the workplace. And I have found that what has allowed my HR team and what can allow organizations to be successful is to find the connection between what your talents are and what the position requires. The book also asks the question, why is talent more important than experience, brain power, and willpower? The answer is simple. Talent is not teachable, whereas the other few factors here are. In HR, in my position, we can utilize this concept when recruiting and when managers are interviewing for positions. We look at resumes to see and find a pattern of recurring behavior in an applicant's work history. To go off that and talking about skills, knowledge, and talents, the difference again relates to how talent is something that cannot be easily taught. And how can great managers find talent? Talent is something that is unique in the workplace. What makes our managers so great is that they have an understanding of the field that they work in. They know that each role within their department is unique and special, and that each one deserves to be respected. They see beyond what the position is and what the job description says, and our managers closely observe the individual that they are interviewing for talent. Next slide, please. So managing people well. So what is so difficult about managing people well is that people are different. Everybody has unique talents, they have different skill sets, but organizations have one unique performance measure that they want to measure people on, so that can be difficult. So there are 4 rules of thumb in order to achieve that, and the first one that I found applied most well to my organization was the standards rule, and that's having a set of standards in the workplace can drive performance and can drive learning in the workplace. So it's important to have that one skill set and performance measure to make the employee have that foundation. And what do you get paid to do? And that's how you know if the customers are right and if the outcomes are right. And looking at if what you're doing is right for the customer, if what you're doing is right for the company, and if what you're doing is right for the individual. And to relate this back again to my organization, I work for a nonprofit that supports individuals that have developmental disabilities. So again, we go back to the question, does this support our customers? Does this relate and support our mission statement? And does this support our individual? One.
Hi, I'm Madeline, and I'm going to cover the topic of strengths in terms of the concepts that were covered in the book. And focus, great managers will build on strength for these concepts. Starting with strengths, looking at a person in terms of how to get that person to achieve their greatest potential. They're going to get to know the person and really understand what the person's talents are, their uniqueness, their what's their destiny, who is this person, and how can they really make them the best person that they possibly are. And in doing so, one of the things that they'll also work on is the concept of transformation that we've already been learning about. And transformation in a way so that they are transforming the person to who they are, that best person, not trying to fix a person. Research has shown that trying to fix a person, trying to change a person just doesn't work. It's a big waste of time, it's a big waste of money, and there's just no point in doing that. We are who we are, we need to recognize our uniqueness and what we have to offer. And great managers will do that. They'll take that time to really invest in the person and understand who they are and how they are. An important thing to remember always, great managers, and I know I've seen this in my career, is to really never blame a person for not having a talent. I've seen this too often. People just get way too upset that someone's not achieving something, and really they need to take a step back and recognize that you can't blame the person. It's just not what they're meant to be doing. At the same time, that pulls us right into the concept of casting. And you see this when you're trying to fill a role, understanding the role and making sure that what you're looking for that role, and then matching it to the person for casting them into the right position is extremely important. Getting it wrong means that, you possibly need to understand that you need to back out of that decision and possibly place them into a different role. Casting is very, very important. It's what great managers really realize the importance of that, and that starts at the point of hiring and also following it through the person's career. You can have someone who their career is going strong and management decides that we want to use them in a different position because they think they're doing so well, and what they find is they might be failing miserably in that next role, and they just really haven't cast that person properly. Another concept that's very important for a person in terms of looking at their performance is managing by exception, and that's saying that we understand who the person is and getting to know them and understanding what their needs are and how we're going to achieve helping them reach their fullest potential is managing by exception. It's saying that we're really focusing on what that person needs. So just because I might look at a position or my work and say this is what's important to me and I should do to them as I think is right, really that's the wrong approach. A great manager says, no, well, I want to help them and give them what they need because their needs are what really will drive them. And taking all those concepts and putting in and understanding it in terms of what do you do with your best, highest performers, and how do you apply this also to your lower performers. So with your great managers find that it's important to invest in your best, to play favorites. It sounds a little bit off because maybe that doesn't sound fair, but research has shown that when you invest in your best, those are the people that are actually more apt to progress and actually improve in their performance, as opposed to our lower performers who they're just not going to have that same increase in performance. So ways of doing that is also to spend time letting that best person know just how valued they are to the company, to the work. Reminding them of giving them praise and just reminding them of the valued work that they are and the excellent work that they are. And always striving and to just pushing that excellent person, that high performer, to be even more than they are. The weak performer or the lower performer, we're trying to minimize on their weakness. So getting to know and understand where the weakness is actually derived from. Hopefully we can minimize that weakness by perhaps balancing their weakness out with another person in the group who can maybe take on those responsibilities, or maybe there's technology, or there's just some way to make that weakness just not as relevant to their job. And at the same time, built on strength, understanding that we really need to understand what their strengths are, because if we're going to keep the person in a role, we need to draw on those strengths and really capitalize on them so that they can achieve their goals. Some articles that I've looked at that I thought were very good. One was from a chief executive, which I thought was a very good article that summarizes pretty much this whole area, this whole topic of performance, and I think it's just it hits on feedback and encouragement, and just hits all the ways to really motivate your top performers. Excuse me. And then another article that I found interesting was from Inside Business, which talks to SMART goals and how to cultivate and work on following a person's progression, and is in line with a lot of what we've been learning. Forbes had an article, How to Motivate Bad Employees, which I found interesting. Was they seemed to focus on more of what was important for the workplace. I'm not sure that it quite fit, and I just thought it was a good contrast because they nowhere mentioned the importance of individualism, of the importance of each person's needs. How will I relate this to work? We have 3 scenarios that we're working on. We're hiring, and we definitely have defined the role, and we have resumes coming in. We're looking at who fits the role based on the talent on the resume. We'll of course expand that into interviews. but I can see already out of 25 resumes, we probably have maybe 3 candidates that fit the role. So it goes to show you just how diverse the community can be of people applying for jobs. Also, so I just 2 other examples of, we have a person who's extremely highly performance driven. I definitely see using the information we've learned with this book to remind this person how valued they are, so that we don't lose their talent in our group. And the third place is, we do have one person in our group who is considered a low performer. We've had some problems and departmental complaints about their performance, and we're probably going to work with management to try to figure out what their weaknesses are and how to minimize them, and work towards really capitalizing on their strengths so that they will be a value contributor to the group. So thank you very much, and on to the next.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Harris, and I'm going to talk about Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, which is the 4th key. So any type of corporation is like a hierarchy, and it's basically a ladder where employees start at the bottom of the ladder and they climb up each rung until eventually they reach the top. And it's human nature to want to get better, which is why employees are always told you start at the bottom, and then eventually, if you work hard, you will make it to the top, to VP or CEO or some other higher position. But in the book, we learned that a ladder isn't exactly a traditional ladder like we've pictured, and one rung doesn't necessarily lead to another. And sometimes there's different pathways every employee needs to go to. And a manager doesn't need to go to the top of the ladder in order to be successful, and some people are actually better if they stay at the lower levels, because their jobs are so much more productive if they stay down there and they're more successful. So employers have a tendency to promote until the next level of incompetence, and great managers don't do this. They realize that in every role, everyone is equally important, and every role needs respect so they can order to be successful. So that goes into the second bullet, which is creating heroes in every role. So in every role, every employee needs to feel like they are valued and they are making a good effort, and they are really helping the company succeed in the long term. So this is just respect, where managers need to respect the employee where they are, and employees need to be respectful of other employees that maybe are higher or lower on the ladder. So for the act of tough love, great managers, mentioned before, they always show respect first, and they also always keep that respect, even if they need to terminate someone or they need to demote someone, that respect is always there. And being fair is another option. Madeline mentioned how sometimes managers can play favorites because the employees that are favorites tend to be more productive. And I'm talking about where being fair, where a manager needs to look at all levels, and they need to realize that just because someone might be a lower-level employee, they still need that respect just as much as someone who is maybe, a manager or an assistant manager. And the book also shows how a great manager always asks why. They ask not only why is something going wrong, but why is it going right, and how can I change things? Maybe an employee is always late because their nanny's late, or they take the bus and the bus schedule, or it's winter and their car isn't that great and it takes them a long time to get to work. So a great manager always asks why and doesn't just blame the employee automatically. And so that's another great thing. Next slide. So Chapter 7 is all about turning the keys. And it's about combining all the other keys that we learned about earlier on, about wisdom and talent and the measuring stick, and combining them together. So for performance management, all employees usually have, annual reviews. It's, most companies do it, but great managers might do quarterly or monthly reviews instead of just one time a year. And all these are focused on the future, and they look at feedback, and they try to improve upon things and make goals for the employee so they can focus and do things differently in the next month or 3 months. And so each key is a new way of thinking for each manager. A manager might not be able to apply all the keys we talked about later on, but they can apply some of them in different situations, which goes into the next point of creating master keys, where you can kind of combine some keys, combine talent, combine wisdom, combine, finding the right fit into one that kind of fits your management style. Because again, these keys aren't about changing your management style, they're just about kind of helping and making you become a great manager. So in the book Open Book Management by John Case, he talks about empowerment, and specifically empowerment on brains. And he says how teams are usually actually the least productive because they don't know what they're supposed to do. So you can kind of relate this to what Rachel's talking about with the measuring stick, and how the first question of the 12 was, do you know what's expected of you? So we can ask, do the teams know what is expected of them? And employees need a map, and they need transparency within the company, because if you put in teams and you want them to try to be innovative and creative, they need to know what they're supposed to do, and they need to know how they can get there. So another thing John Case mentioned was transparency and loyalty within the company. And not every employer is going to stay with the company forever. Employees move, it's just the nature of a business. But you need to be loyal to the employees you have, because if a manager isn't loyal to his subordinates, they're not going to be loyal to him. So how I can relate this to my own job is, I work in a very small company, and I do social media, and I don't want to promote to a next level because I might not be great at that. So I need to think about eventually when I move into a different company, realizing that even though going up the ladder might seem like a good thing, sometimes I might need to stop, because if I promote to the next level, I'm actually going to hate my job and I'm going to want to leave. So if I stay at the level where I'm good at, things will stay, and that will be good for me. So people need to realize that. So in conclusion, managers are catalysts, and they cannot make an employee productive. They cannot make an employee work hard or do anything. So these keys are just a practical guide for the managers, but eventually, and everything does come down to the employees and whether or not they want to succeed or not. Thank you.